Welcome back to the library, dear wanderers. Today we're gonna head back to Library Wing 1, the Hidden Nest, back to the first Oak's shelf, where we'll pick up the first work we see. This one was brought to the library by Skipmeister. Now without further ado, Artifex. The street was as gray as the clouds, with the only life coming from the rain that was barely visible against the buildings. Cars drove by, their yellow lights providing dull illumination, but I could barely see if anyone was driving them or not. This place could use some livening up, I thought to myself. Good thing that's my specialty. I had worked hard for a very specific look, one that changed with my surroundings, so I found myself in a drab gray suit with hair as colorless as the sky. Drat. I had invested quite a great deal into my clothes and hair dye, but I had found that as they reflected my environment, they seemed to absorb its effects, and the street was getting me down a tad. Best get a move on. The pub I was supposed to meet at was no ordinary pub, not at all. There were only a few people walking up and down the street other than me, and I doubted that any of them could snap themselves out of their own personal haze of misery enough to notice my activities. But the pub insisted that precautions be taken anyway. I slipped into a small alleyway when I was sure that nobody was looking. The alley was even grimier than the street. Its only distinguishing features were the rubbish, a large metal door on my right, and a small black cat gnawing on a fish skeleton in front of me. It looked up at me and hissed. "Away with you," I sneered. The cat did as it was told and ran past me. I felt silly for talking to a cat, but shrugged it off. I've done stranger things than that. I went up to the door and knocked. "Hello?" I said in a voice of faux politeness. A small window in the door slid open. A bald, pimply face appeared behind it. "What's the password?" the man asked gruffly. My, I shook my head smirking. "Aren't you the ugliest creature I've ever seen?" "Oh, well, screw you then," he scoffed back. My apologies, sir, my apologies," I nodded. "You better be sorry," he snapped. I know, and I am, really," I insisted. My face could not help but contort into a grin when I asked my question. "Are we cool yet?" The man on the other side grinned back, and within moments the doors swung open. I love doing that. The pub was a great contrast to the street. There was still a low-key feel to it, but it had a luxury to it that stood in stark opposition to the world outside. I was bathed in a warm, dark crimson, quite literally, as my appearance changed once again, as I surveyed my surroundings. The whole place seemed to be made of velvet, with lovely piano music in the background, a bizarre yet familiar rendition of Beethoven's Ninth Symphony. The man who opened the door now no longer looked as I had called him, the ugliest creature I've ever seen, but a classy, refined valet. "Your name, sir?" the valet asked, not in a gruff tone, but in a refined, pleasant-sounding accent. "Artifex," I responded. "I believe you'll see my name on a list somewhere. I was invited here, after all." "Yes, you were, weren't you?" The valet drew a list from his pocket. "Should be at the top of the list. A for Artifex, yes?" "Should be," I shrugged. He said skeptically. "I'm not seeing you at the top here." "Then try under T," I said quickly with a hint of shame. "T," he asked curiously. All right, then. He looked down his list. Ah, yes, here you are, Artifex. Although, I don't know why your name is down here rather than... I'm sure it's no big deal, I said politely. Anyways, I must be getting to my meeting. I walked away from the valet and over to the bar. The pub was not too crowded that evening, but there was a man in a blue-green suit and top hat sitting at the bar. This is him, all right. Jasper! I announced my presence. Hmm? He turned around. Ah, yes. There you are. Do sit down. Join me. I took the bar stool next to his. So, why did you want to meet here, of all places? This is one of our older saloons, he said. His voice was very posh, almost as if he was putting it on. I'm something of a stickler for tradition, rather unlike you. What about us suggests we follow tradition? I laughed. Amusing, Jasper said in a tone that suggested he did not find it amusing at all. What did you want to see me about? Shouldn't you know? I replied. I was wondering if you had the supplies I wanted. The old Arcadia stuff. I said I'd be willing to pay handsomely. Now, Thomas, we've been over this, Jasper began. And must I tell you of that again? I interrupted. I suppose that was rude of me, but what he said was even ruder. I do not go by Thomas anymore. In case I didn't make it clear, it's Artifex now. Artifex, of course, Jasper smirked. In what language does that mean, artist, my boy? Greek? Latin? It matters not, I hissed. Thomas is not my name anymore. It means as little to me as your old name does to you. Now, do you have what I wanted? Oh, my boy, he said in a jovial voice I was sure was false. You must understand, the opportunities you've been given in the past were afforded to you because of your father. What did I tell you about mentioning my father? I interrupted again, but Jasper paid no attention. And now that you're all grown up, well, you're still quite young, of course, but you're an adult now, and you should learn to take some artistic responsibility. I have taken responsibility, I insisted. Just you wait and see. Our movement, our art has become weak, softened over time, misused by internet pranksters, shelved away by snakes, locked up by the Foundation. I'll bring it all back, the way that it was meant to be. Just you wait. You say you've taken responsibility, Jasper sneered. But all I see is a glorhound with all his talent inherited, and whose actions would bring our enemies down on us once again. We've been lucky to survive in the past. Who is we? We are not an organization, but a movement, I replied. This is getting nowhere, I realized. All right then, Jasper. You can keep the toys. I've got better things to play with anyway. Like what? Jasper laughed. Just you wait and see, I repeated again and shook my head. Old fossil, I whispered under my breath. Time to leave, I think. Hey, he called out as I got up from my bar stool. I heard that, young man. Oh, I'm sorry, I apologized. I truly am. Jasper rolled his eyes. I could not help but grin again. Are we cool yet? Another look into the Are We Cool Yet group. Or I guess I should say movement, as they call themselves. It's always fun to see them, and I do believe we've seen another work containing artifacts before by the same author. I think it was one of our first few readings. Number 7, The Exhibition, I believe it was. But either way, let's move on to the next work. This one, a short and lovely poem, as I do believe I always say. This one by Carolyn W. Now, without further ado. I keep peaches where ants can reach them. Hey, the year after your breakup, do you remember the box of peaches in the mail? That came from your landlord on vacation. She'd been gone for days, so we thought we could eat them so solacing. Sweet pink fur and beautiful foam, soft, we asked her. Could we have them so bright? But she'd rather let them spoil. Still, we secretly shared the roundest with my dad, ran to the grocer, bought a cheap peach to fill the half-moon gap. Felt so sneaky. Sticky felt so sweet. Your hair was still so long it caught sugar on your lip. How I love replacing. Still do. We left the cedar box in the kitchen and the secret peach never spoiled. Brought in ants under the dirty glass door. From the lily patch through the back, eager for hot yellow sugar. Though they were pillagers, but really only there to replace the peaches. They were so careful and quiet, so polite. We hoped she wouldn't notice, and she never did. But it makes me wonder, should I get us peaches sometime? Replace the ones we ate, or didn't eat. Replace the ones the garden creatures had. Replace them again when we eat them again. String of sunset skins and crisp bites. Beautiful brown house of apricots and nectarines. Sweet lily ants circling the kitchen thousands. Well, I know you didn't see it. Bruised like a beating, baked in ugly bugs. Too soft and sweet for someone as smart as you. A subpar replacement. I'll get them for me then. Take one to the grass and split it with you. Just one grocer's peach. Nobody's baby, nobody's pride. But still a sweet thing. Then I'll bury the pit under the green and come home with 1,000 fragrant fruit. I'll watch the ants all pace around me. I'll put the peaches in the pantry. As always, I do so enjoy Carolyn W.'s poetry. It's always amazingly written. But we should move on to the next piece. This one was brought to us by Dr. Everett Mann. Now, without further ado, 81st turn, 7th year, 19th cycle, Tresday. From the Journal of Aframos Long Journey, Pilgrim, with notes by Avostor, scholar of Reeve Library. Tresday, 19th cycle, 7th year, 81st turn, 49th day in the trees. It's all Torn's fault. I should have known. We reached the engine shortly after we rested last night. It was not as we had left it. Large parts of the machine had broken. We saw gears laying around it, cylinders broken off. The parts that were left were moving fitfully. One end of it had burst, and wrecked metal lay everywhere. The abbot engineer hobbled up to us. He had a broken leg, but he had constructed a crutch from the wreckage. His face was clouded in anger. "You idiots," he shouted at us. "You colossal fools." He laid into us with his crutch until he fell over. It would have been comical if the other monks hadn't moved around us. Many of them were similarly injured, but what I noticed first was that most of them were armed with knives, clubs, and weapons improvised like the abbot's engineer's crutch. The old man picked himself up. He screamed at us incoherently for several minutes, until finally he exhausted his anger. Then the technolite we had spoken to before, now missing a leg, walked up. Like the rest of them, he had an angry, desperate look on his face. He then began to tell us what had happened. Soon after, we had passed by the engine. It had exploded. Several of their number had died in the explosion, but that was, in the technolite's own words, a minor inconvenience, compared to the loss of the machine itself. Because they weren't crazy. They were right. The machine, he explained, kept track of events. It made certain that one event followed another. It kept things working smoothly. With the machine broken, things were not working smoothly, and they would soon get worse. And it was all our fault. I thought about telling them that Torn had pressed the buttons, but I was fairly certain that they would fall on him then, and I wouldn't abandon a friend like that. The abbot engineer had recovered from his tirade and motioned for silence. "You wrecked the engine," he said. "You must fix it. Soon you will be the only ones who can." I asked what he meant by that when one of our guards changed. One minute he was an older man with a long beard, the next minute she was a young woman with long hair on her head. "As you can see," he said. The young woman stared at her body in alarm. "These disturbances are affecting us as well. Tomorrow we may not even be the same species. After that, we won't be able to keep two thoughts together long enough to even consider the machine. You're at the center of this, though. You'll be affected least. That may give you the time you need." "Time for what?" Thorn asked, sounding eager to help. I think he was feeling guilty. "You must find," the old man said, and then he disappeared, leaving behind a bowl filled with hair. "You have to find the non-deterministic trout," the technolite supplied, picking up the bowl reverently. And a footnote here. Coincidentally, True North Zephyr recently reported that in parts of Centauri land, they worship the hair of their ancestors. We asked what this might be, and he shrugged. "You figure it out. You have to skift and zem, We tried to speak with him more, but we couldn't get any more sense from him or the other monks. We slept by the remains of the engine and moved on the morning. We couldn't see any of the monks. There was a fine breakfast prepared where they had been camped. Under the circumstances, we decided not to eat any. Better safe than sorry. We spoke a bit about our quest as we walked. Torn says that a trout is a kind of fish, though he's never heard of a non-deterministic one before. How can we find something if we have no idea what it might look like or where it might be? As we walked, there was more evidence of strangeness. The empty holes growing larger. Torn calls them negative space. There are also trees changing ages, and I haven't seen many animals about. The ones we have seen act strangely. I saw one of these chittering tree-climbing creatures running between the trees. It sat suddenly and gave out a shrieking howl before flying away. Then there was the spiny creature that exploded a dozen yards ahead of us. We were lucky we weren't closer. Some of the quills had buried themselves several inches in the nearby trees. There was a place we found where sounds came half a minute after they were made. This made it difficult for us to talk to each other. We looked around for any sort of fish. We saw a few riverbeds, but they were dry, having run into the negative space. I hope we find it in time. Another page from the Journal of Aphromoth's Long Journey. But this is where we ended here for today, dear wanderers. Thank you very much for coming. It, as always, has been an honor reading for you. I will note we did miss but a single reading, and that's because it was one I looked at and thought, I don't feel like reading an internet chat room log. It isn't terrible, but yeah. Either way, again, thank you very much for coming. Good luck out there. Make sure to stretch out and find yourself within yourself. I know you're in there.